You were born under an ordinary sun. It was a yellow dwarf star. Nothing special in the grand star science of the cosmos. Your world was Kalen's reach. A frontier colony, red dust and stubborn hope. Life was simple. It was good. You remember the taste of synthale on your father's breath. You remember your mother's hands, calloused from hydroponics. These were the anchors of your small universe. That day was like any other. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The twin moons were pale ghosts in the daylight. You were playing in the fields of singing grass. The blades chimed when the wind blew. You were 7 years old. Your biggest worry was hiding from your friends. It was a game of hide and seek, and you were determined to win. You found the perfect spot. It was behind a cluster of crystalline flora. Their facets shimmered with captured sunlight. You crouched low in the red dirt. You held your breath and listened. You heard the chime of the grass. You heard the distant hum of the colony's atmospheric processor. You heard your friend, Leo, call your name. You smiled. He would never find you here. Then a new sound began. It was not a sound your ears could hear. It was a hum inside your bones. The light changed. The brilliant blue sky began to shift. You peered over the crystals. A crack had appeared in the heavens. It was a tear of impossible color. It did not explode. It did not roar. It simply opened, a silent wound in the fabric of the day. From this tear, light began to pour. It was not the harsh light of an explosion. It was thick. It was slow. It looked like liquid gold, like honey made from stars. It descended upon the fields. Your friends stopped their search. They pointed upwards with silent, open mouths. Their parents ran from the habitat domes. Alarms began to blare, a frantic, useless noise. You did not feel fear. You felt awe. The light was the most beautiful thing you had ever seen. It drifted down like gentle snow. It touched the singing grass, and the grass fell silent. It touched the crystalline flora, and they glowed with an inner fire. It flowed towards you. You did not run. You stood up. You reached out your small hand to touch it. The light that came from the sky was not fire. It was not energy as the experts understood it. It was something other. It touched your fingertips first. There was no heat, only a feeling of profound connection. It felt like dipping your hand into a cool stream, a stream that flowed with ancient knowledge, a stream that carried the whispers of distant nebulae. Then it washed over you. It was a flood, a deluge of pure, silent luminescence. It filled your eyes. It filled your lungs. You felt a pressure build inside you, a sense of drowning, but you did not need to breathe. The light was your air now. It poured into every cell. It rewrote the simple truths of your childhood. Your name felt distant. The memory of your mother's face began to blur. You were drowning in starlight. The red dirt of Kalen's reach was gone. The blue sky was a forgotten dream. There was only the light, and the feeling of becoming part of it. The threads of your own small life unraveled. They were replaced by other threads. Countless threads. They connected everything. You could see them, feel them. You saw a thread connecting a dying star to a forming planet. You saw a thread of gravity linking two galaxies in a slow dance. Your mind, the small, 7-year-old mind, screamed. It was too much. The sheer scale of it was a crushing weight. The secrets of star science were not meant for a child. The universe was a tapestry of infinite complexity, and you were seeing every single thread at once. Your identity was a single drop of water. It was falling into an endless ocean of light. It dissolved completely. The last thing you knew of yourself was your purpose. You had been hiding. You were trying to win a game. The thought seemed so small now, so fragile, so utterly unimportant. The light did not care about your game. It had its own purpose. It was looking for something. Or perhaps it was simply sharing itself. A gift of terrible, beautiful clarity. Your body gave out. You collapsed in the silent, glowing fields. Your consciousness scattered into a billion points of light. You were no longer a child on a frontier world. You were a part of the great, silent hum of the cosmos. Your name was gone. Your home was gone. There was only the drowning. The peaceful, overwhelming, and absolute light. You awoke to the color white, a sterile medical white that hurt your new eyes. The ceiling panels hummed with a low frequency. You could see the thread of power running through them. It was a jagged, angry line of silver. You heard beeping, a heart monitor. You could see the thread of its logic, a simple loop of code, a calm, blue thread. A face leaned over you. It was a man in a doctor's coat. His expression was a mixture of concern and disbelief. You could see the threads connected to him. A pale green thread of curiosity, a knotted gray thread of exhaustion, a bright, warm thread of affection for his daughter on another world. He was speaking. His words were slow, as if to a frightened animal. "Can you hear me? Do you know your name?" You knew the answer he wanted. But the name felt wrong. It was like an old piece of clothing. It no longer fit. You looked past him. Your parents stood by the door. Their threads were a maelstrom of color. Fear was a cold, sharp purple. Relief was a warm, flowing gold. Love was a brilliant, blinding crimson that pulsed with every beat of their hearts. They said you were a miracle. The event had sterilized 100 square kilometers. Every plant, every insect, every microbe, erased, not burned. Simply gone. Vanished. You were at the epicenter. You should have been a ghost. Instead, you were here. You had a mild fever and pupils that reacted slowly to light. Otherwise, you were unharmed. You slept for 3 days, your mother said. Her voice was a fragile thread of sound. You sat up. The world felt loud, not in sound, but in information. Every object, every person was broadcasting its nature, its history, its connections. The doctor picked up a data pad. You saw the thread linking his neural interface to the device. You saw the data flowing through it. You saw the password he was thinking about. It was a remarkably silly password. He put a cup to your lips. It was water. You saw the threads of its journey. From the ship's reclamation system, through purified pipes, to this simple plastic cup. You drank. The water felt like drinking pure, simple truth. You looked at the doctor's own cup on a nearby table. It was coffee. You saw the bitter, angry brown threads of it. Your coffee is terrible, you said. Your voice was hoarse. The doctor stared at you. How did you know I was drinking coffee? You just pointed. You didn't know how to explain it. You saw the truth of things now. The threads that wove reality together. They called in more experts, scientists from distant core worlds. They scanned your brain. They showed you images. They asked you endless questions. Your brain activity was anomalous. It was a constant, high-frequency storm. Yet you were calm. You were no longer the child who ran through fields of singing grass. That child was gone, drowned in the starlight. You were something new, something they had no name for. You were a living map of connections, a silent observer of the secret language of the universe. And you were, for the first time in your life, completely and utterly alone. Years passed. You grew. Your body caught up with your ageless mind. You learned to filter the threads. You learned to focus on one connection at a time. Otherwise, the noise was overwhelming. You could live a mostly normal life. But you were never normal. You were the star child of Kalen's reach, a living relic of a mystery no one ever solved. Humanity moved on. The event was a footnote in the history books, a strange, isolated phenomenon. You were moved to a research station on Titan, then to a quiet university on Earth. They studied you. They protected you. They were kind to you. But you were always a specimen, a beautiful, unexplainable puzzle. You learned to read their faces and their threads. Then the new ships came. They arrived without warning. There was no tear in the sky this time, no beautiful, terrible light. There was only a sudden, chilling absence. Long-range sensors on the edge of the system went dark. One by one, they were just gone. A patrol fleet was sent to investigate. They found nothing, just empty space, an unnerving, perfect silence. Then you saw them, not with your eyes, not on a screen. You felt them in the threads. A fleet of impossibilities arrived from the deep void. They appeared at the system's edge. They were not made of metal or light. They were holes in reality, perfect geometric shapes, spheres, cubes, pyramids of absolute blackness. They did not reflect light. They consumed it. They moved in formations that defied physics. Perfect lines, perfect spheres. There was no engine wash, no radiation, no communication. They were a fleet of silent, hungry ghosts. Humanity's grand fleets, the UNS Valiant, the EFS Hammer, moved to intercept. They broadcast every known greeting, every mathematical proof of intelligence, every plea for peaceful contact. The voids did not answer. You watched on a monitor with your caretakers. They saw sleek, black ships. You saw something far more terrifying. You saw the threads of reality itself being devoured. The space around the ships was warped. The gentle, glowing tapestry of the cosmos was being torn, eaten. Every thread of light, every strand of gravity that touched them, vanished. It was a cosmic hunger, an unmaking. The UNS Valiant fired a warning shot, a brilliant lance of plasma. It crossed the void towards the nearest black sphere. The lance was a beautiful, bright thread of pure energy. It traveled for a few seconds. Then it touched the sphere's event horizon of wrongness. It did not explode. It did not scatter. It simply ceased to exist. The thread was cut. A chill ran through you that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. The voids were not an invading fleet. They were a phenomenon, a cancer in the fabric of space. And they were heading towards Earth. Panic was a cold, fast-moving plague. The arrival of the silent armada, the voids, the eaters, the holes, shattered humanity. For centuries, you had been the masters of your small corner of the galaxy. You had faced down pirates and stellar phenomena. But you had never faced an enemy you could not shoot, an enemy you could not even understand. The Great Evacuation began. Trillions of people trying to escape on millions of ships. It was chaos. Lines of refugees stretched from Earth to Jupiter. Fleets jumped to random coordinates. They ran into the darkness, hoping to find a safe harbor. Many jumped right into the path of the voids. Their light, their threads, simply went out. One after another. A silent, rolling apocalypse. You were no longer a university project. You were now a strategic asset. Or a curse. High Command wasn't sure. You were taken aboard the Dauntless. It was one of the new Ark-class command carriers. A city in space, filled with terrified soldiers and desperate officers. The ship was all gray metal and nervous energy. The corridors hummed with the threads of fear. So much fear. Admirals and generals showed you star charts. They pointed at glowing icons on holographic maps. Where should we go? Where are they moving? Their questions were frantic. Their plans were based on guesswork. Their star science was useless against an enemy that ate light. They saw a map of stars. You saw the true battlefield. You saw the tapestry, the endless, shimmering threads of space-time. And you saw the holes the voids were tearing in it. They were jagged, spreading wounds of nothingness. They moved with a purpose you couldn't yet grasp. But you could see their paths. You saw where they were going. You saw the threads they were consuming. And then you saw something else. Something the admirals could never see. In the spaces between the tiers, in the gaps between the encroaching voids, there were other paths. Single, shimmering threads of pure, unbroken light. They twisted through gravitational wells. They danced along the edges of nebulae. They were routes that ship navigators would call suicide. Impossible jumps that would tear a vessel apart. But the threads were stable. They were clear. They were safe. You tried to explain it. You stood in the war room of the Dauntless. A sea of decorated officers stared at you. You were a young adult in a simple gray jumpsuit. You were the strangest person in the room. Even the ship's official cat seemed more at home. You spoke of threads and light. You spoke of safe paths through deadly places. They looked at you with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Child," a gruff old admiral said. His thread was a rigid, fraying line of stubborn pride. "Our computers say that route would collapse a ship's structural integrity." "Your computers cannot see the path," you replied softly. "They only see the obstacles." They did not listen. They chose a safe route based on old data. The fleet jumped, and they jumped directly into the path of a smaller void formation. 3 frigates were lost. Their threads winked out of existence in an instant. The panic on the bridge was a cacophony of shouting and alarms. It was a storm of terrified, clashing threads. In that moment of chaos, you saw the one impossible path to safety, and you knew no one would believe you. Your first true test did not come from an admiral. It came from a commander. Her name was Eva Rostova. She was the captain of the Dauntless. She had quiet eyes that had seen too much. Her thread was not like the others. It was a steady, focused line of cobalt blue. It was a thread of pragmatism and weary responsibility. She had watched 3 of her escort ships vanish. She was out of options. A new message cut through the chaos. It was a distress call, automated, looping. It came from the medical frigate Nightingale. It had been damaged in the last jump. Its engines were offline. It was adrift. Its location was directly in the path of a massive void sphere. They had 2 hours of life support, maybe 3. The void would be on them in 1. The war room fell silent. Every officer knew what that meant. The Nightingale was lost. It carried over 900 souls, patients and doctors, families, children. Reaching it was impossible. The direct route was blocked by the void. Any other route would take too long. It was a death sentence. The admiral bowed his head. He began to draft a fleet-wide message of condolence. Commander Rostova looked at you. Her cobalt thread seemed to brighten. She walked over to you, ignoring the admirals. Her voice was low and clear. "You," she said. "You see things. You see paths." "Yes," you answered. "Can you see the Nightingale?" You closed your eyes. You let the noisy, gray bridge fall away. You let the fear of the soldiers fade. You dove into the sea of light that was always waiting for you. The universe of threads bloomed in your mind. You searched for the nightingale. You found its thread. It was a tiny, flickering strand of silver light, the faint energy of its distress beacon. It was trembling, about to be extinguished. And beside it, you saw the void. It was a great, hungry mouth of absolute nothing. It was slowly, inexorably moving towards the flickering silver light. Then you looked for a path. Not a path for a fleet. A path for a single, fast ship. A rescue ship. You ignored the obstacles. You ignored the gravity wells. You ignored the radiation fields. You looked only for the unbroken threads. And you found one. It was a crazy, beautiful, terrifying path. It was a sequence of 17 tiny, precise micro-jumps. A slalom through an asteroid field. A hard burn that would skim the corona of a blue giant. It would use the star's gravity to slingshot the ship around a void cluster. It was a path that no computer would ever calculate. A path that would look like pure madness to a navigator. But it was there. It was whole. It was the only way. You opened your eyes. Commander Rostova was still watching you. Her face was calm. "There is a way," you said. You began to speak the coordinates, not as numbers, but as feelings, as vectors of light and shadow. Jump to the edge of the dust cloud. Angle 37 degrees towards the phantom star. The gravity there is thin. Then a hard burn for 11 seconds. No more. The navigation officer scoffed. "Commander, that's suicide. The ship can't handle those stresses." Commander Rostova never took her eyes off you. "Can a rescue team make it back?" You looked again. You saw the path shimmer. It would hold. "Yes," you said. "The path is stable. It will get them there and back. But they must leave now." A silence fell over the bridge. The Admiral stood up, ready to object, ready to call this insanity. Commander Eva Rostova held up a hand. She had made her decision. She had weighed the certainty of death against the possibility of a miracle. She chose the miracle. She chose you. She turned to her helm officer. "You have the con," she said. Her voice did not waver. "Launch the fastest ship we have, the Razor. Give them the child's course." The officer's eyes went wide. "Commander, on whose authority?" Commander Rostova's gaze was like steel. Her cobalt thread burned brightly. "On my authority. Make the jumps. Trust the child."